Congratulations, you have made it all the way to the end, and it is time to work on part 6 of the business plan. For this section, you're going to be documenting your business goals for the next 5 years. You might be a goal-oriented person who is all about this, and maybe this is one of the main things you normally do in your business planning. Or on the other hand, you might be kind of wondering, do you even need to make these goals? What purpose will they serve? So let's talk about that for just a moment. Clarifying your business goals is going to give you a sense of direction. It's going to give you a target to aim at. You may have heard the phrase, if you don't know where you're going, it's unlikely that you'll make it. And that is true in business, perhaps more than anywhere else. You need to know where you're trying to drive your business, or else you might end up somewhere that you don't really want to go. So by setting this target, even if you don't make it to that target ultimately, you'll at least be headed in the right direction and be building something intentionally that's really in alignment with what you want for your life. And also, by setting these goals, you're setting a bar to aim at. You've probably heard the phrase, shoot for the moon, because even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. And again, so true in business. When you set high goals for yourself, even if you fall far short of the goal, you still will progress much further than if you set a low goal, because you'll be trying so much harder to reach that high goal. Now, of course, that doesn't mean set impossible goals. I'm all about setting realistic goals that you truly believe you can achieve, but at the same time, I want you to be a little bit ambitious so that you are pushing yourself and you are striving for something that is really worth pursuing. Of course, as an entrepreneur, you are your own boss and you get to decide exactly how hard you want to push yourself and what exactly you want to achieve, but writing down these goals is the perfect way and place to do that. One last thing before we get into section 6 of the business plan itself, and that is an important note for those of you who maybe haven't earned any money in your business yet. Maybe you're just planning a business that you haven't actually started yet, or maybe you've started your business but you've earned virtually no money yet. If that is your situation right now, then I actually want you to just hit pause on this and not fill out section 6. And that's because it is very difficult to make any sort of accurate predictions, even general benchmarks for 1 year or 5 years down the road, if you don't have any data to work with yet. You'll just be completely guessing and your goals won't really be based in reality. So instead, here's what I want you to do. I want you to just focus on making your first 10 sales as quickly as possible based on everything else that you've worked out in the business plan. So forget about 1 year goals, forget about 5 year goals, just make your first 10 sales as quickly as possible. Once you do that, then you will have data that will enable you to fill out this 6th section of the plan and make some accurate reality-based 1 year and 5 year goals that will be a lot more meaningful and a lot more helpful. For more information about why you should make those first 10 sales and how to go about doing so, click up there in the corner for a video that I made a few months back about how to test your business idea and generate your first sales. Okay, so starting out with your 1 year goals, the first goal you're going to set is a revenue goal. So what is revenue? Well, revenue is the total amount of money that your business brings in. So in the next year, how much money would you like to strive to bring in your business? This is different than profits, it's just the total amount of money. You ignore the expenses, you're just looking at that total sum. The rule of thumb for setting revenue goals is that you can expect to be able to increase your revenue by between 1.1 times, or increasing by 10%, and 2 times, or doubling your revenue. So in other words, if you earned, let's say, $100,000 last year, then a reasonable goal for this coming year would be to earn $110,000 up to $200,000. Now, of course, you might be able to do even better than that, or perhaps even the lower end of that goal might feel overly ambitious to you. It depends on your personality, your situation, and your specific business. However, I'd recommend setting a goal that's somewhere in that range. If you're in an industry where it's harder to grow or you haven't seen much growth over the last few years, you might want to set the more conservative goal. Whereas on the other hand, if your business is young and you are growing it very quickly and you're in an industry that's easy to grow and you have a business model that's easy to scale, then, be ambitious and set that 2x goal. The next 1-year goal you'll set is your profit goal. So profit is what is left over after you deduct your expenses from your revenue. In other words, revenue minus expenses equals profit. So the first question you need to answer to figure out what your profit goal should be is how much was your profit last year? And generally, we like to think of profit in terms of percentage. What percentage of your revenue did you keep as profit? So for example, if last year you grossed $100,000 in revenue and you were able to take home $60,000 of that in profit after spending $40,000 on expenses, then you would say that you have a 60% profit margin and that you had expenses that were 40% of your total revenue. Once you do the math to figure out what your profit margin was last year, you'll have the data you need to be able to set an intelligent, reasonable goal for what you want your profit margin to be in the next year. It's important that you understand that it is really tough to increase both your revenue and significantly improve your profit margin at the same time. So typically, if you've set a more aggressive revenue goal, for example, trying to double your revenue over the next year, then you will want to have your profit goal simply be to maintain your current profit margin. Whereas on the other hand, if you've set a much more conservative revenue goal, perhaps you're just trying to increase your revenue by 10%, then this could be a great time to more aggressively try to improve your profit margin. So for example, in that situation, you might try to decrease your expenses from 40% of your total revenue down to 30%. You're going to find that it's more difficult to change your profit margins by a significant percentage, so typically increasing your profit margin by about 5% would be more conservative, and then trying to improve your profit margin by up to about 20% would be considered very aggressive and ambitious. To give you some examples of what I mean by those numbers, right now your profit margin might be 30%. Well, improving your profit margin from 30 to 35% would be a good but fairly conservative goal to set, whereas improving your profit margin from 30% to 50% would be a very aggressive and ambitious goal. So in order to decide what you want your profit margin goal to be for the next year, you need to first consider the revenue goal that you have already set, and then try to balance it out with an opposite profit margin goal. So if you set a very aggressive, ambitious revenue goal, then just trying to maintain your profit margin, or if you set a very conservative revenue growth goal, then you might try to increase your profit margin more. The next goal for you to set is a sales goal. And so to figure out what you want your sales goal to be, you need to figure out how many sales you will need to make in order to hit your revenue goal. Now, most of you who are watching this lesson are going to sell more than one product. And so in that situation, you need to decide how many sales you want to make of each different product. Because when you sell more than one product, there are many different ways you could hit the same revenue goal. For example, you might sell a $1,000 product and a $100 product. And if you're trying to make, let's say, $5,000, then you could sell 5 units of the $1,000 product and 0 units of the $100 product. Or you could sell 2 units of the $1,000 product and 30 units of the $100 product, just to give you a few examples. So part of this is pure math. You just need to figure out how many sales would equal that revenue number, but also you have the decision-making factor where you need to decide which products you want to sell. And I would recommend that you base this both on your previous year's numbers and kind of extrapolating from there, how many more sales do you expect to make from each of these different products, but also based on what you really want in terms of your personal goals. Perhaps some of these products require a lot more of your time and energy and attention, and others are much more hands-off. Of course, these are decisions that only you can make, and so it really comes down to just that. It's not a decision that you can make by finding the answer somewhere. You have to decide what you truly want. Next, we come to impact goals. So what is an impact goal? Well, basically, as you run your company and you sell these products, your business is going to have a certain effect on the world. Hopefully, you will be changing your customers' lives in certain ways. You might be affecting change in the world at large, and you'll probably be changing your own circumstances as well. So the question here is, aside from the simple revenue that is generated by the sales, what impact do you want to have on the world by running your business and selling your products? So let me give you a few examples of different types of impact that you might pursue. First of all, you might be striving to impact the lives of your customers, somehow change their lives. You could measure this by counting the number of customers that you impact in this way, or perhaps substantiating the impact that you have in the individual lives. Another impact you might have with your business is changing the world. Perhaps you work to right some social injustice. Now, you might not be able to completely eradicate poverty, but you might be able to make a significant dent in one area of society that you really want to work on. And finally, maybe you're working to change something in your own life. You might be striving to improve your financial situation, or to be able to move into a different house or a different city, or to give yourself more free time where you're not working on your business. As you're thinking about what you want your impact goal to be for the next year, take a moment to look back on this past year and think about the impact you had on the world in that period of time. Do you want to have the same impact just on a larger scale over the next year, or do you want to impact the world in a different way? Your final 1-year goal is development. Development has to do with how you want your business to change over the next year. Your company 1 year from today is not going to look quite the same as it does today. At least you probably don't want it to. So how do you want your business to change in the next 12 months? Here are a few different ways you might develop your company over the next year. Perhaps you want your team to grow or to change in some way. Maybe you just want to hire your very first assistant. How do you want your role to change? Maybe right now you're doing everything, but there are certain tasks you want to delegate. Maybe right now you're working a certain number of hours, but you'd like to work fewer hours. Maybe right now you're doing a lot of content creation, but you want to move into more of a strategy role. Maybe right now you're the only person who is actually serving the customers, but you want to bring someone alongside you who can serve customers as well. These are all things to think about as you think about how to develop your company. There also might be systems that you want to change or develop. Maybe you want to lead your team in a new way, or perhaps you want to compensate them in a different way. What do you want your company to look like 1 year from today? There really isn't anything off the table when it comes to development. Any change that you want to work towards is an option. Once you've finished your 1-year goals, then it's time to move on and work through your 5-year goals. Now, you'll find that the details to work out, the different goals to set for 5 years, are exactly the same as for 1 year. You're only going to be setting somewhat bigger goals. Now, of course, you're probably wondering exactly how much bigger those goals should be. So let me give you some rules of thumb to give you a general idea. The first goal here is your revenue goal. And for your revenue goal, I'd recommend that you set a goal of 2 times to 10 times your current revenue. So for example, if you earned $100,000 this past year, then I'd recommend setting a 5-year goal of earning $200,000 per year, or up to $1 million per year. Clearly, the lower side of that 2 times number, would be the much more conservative, moderate, easy to hit goal. And then on the high side of that 10 times goal would be the much more ambitious and more challenging goal to set. Now, it doesn't just come down to your personal preferences. Part of this has to do with the industry that your company is in and your particular business model, because in some more competitive industries where there are more challenges and perhaps you're carrying a lot of inventory or have a lot of expenses, that can make it more difficult to grow your revenue year over year, versus if you are in an industry where there is not a lot of competition and you have a business model that is easier to scale, for example, digital product sales, then you might be able to go after that 10 times goal. Next up, we've got those profit margin goals. So if you're being more ambitious with your revenue goals, then you might strive to just hold your profit margins stable for the next 5 years. Whereas on the other hand, if you don't expect your revenue to grow all that much, then you could be more ambitious with your profit margin goals. Here, I would recommend that you can hope to possibly cut your expenses by up to half, although that is a very ambitious goal. So for example, if you are currently spending 60% of your revenue on various expenses, you might be able to cut your expenses down to only 30% of your total revenue. However, that definitely depends on the specific type of business you run. If you are running a business with very high costs for the products, very high expenses, then that might not be possible, but that would be the most ambitious goal I would set there for the next 5 years. The last 3 goals you're going to set for your 5-year goals are not going to multiply by just a scale of magnitude as with the first few. Instead, you're going to be able to just think about affecting some larger scale changes. So for example, with your sales goals, right now you might have your sales split between several smaller products, and over the next year, perhaps you want to cut it down to just a couple. Well, over the next 5 years, you could completely change the landscape of how your sales are generated and which different products are bringing in that revenue. So really, the sky is the limit here, and you can plan anything you like to change over the next 5 years. And kind of the same thing goes for impact and development. Maybe you are impacting the world in one way now, but 5 years from today, you would like to be impacting the world in a completely different way. Or maybe you want to be impacting the world in exactly the same way and just at a greater scale of magnitude. And then finally, for development, there are numerous ways you could completely change your company over the next 5 years. So really, with these 5-year goals, more than anything, I just want to encourage you to think out of the box and not feel limited by anything at all. Feel free to set wild, crazy goals that you don't even think are possible, because if you reach for those goals, then you will be affecting more change in your company, you'll be creating bigger results, and you'll be impacting the world far more than if you try to play things much more conservatively. Well, this brings us to the very end of the business planning deep dive series. Thank you so much for sticking with me all the way through the end. You are clearly very serious about your business. I did want to take just a moment to acknowledge that right now you might be almost to the end of working on your business plan. You might be just needing to finish up section 6 and then you will be done. Or maybe you haven't even started yet. I know some people like to watch an entire series or an entire course before getting to work. So if that happens to be you, I just want you to know that that approach is totally valid and that I see you and you're not behind, but now it is time for you to get to work and really put into practice what you've learned over these past 6 episodes. Whether your business plan is almost done right now or you haven't even gotten started, either way, I want you to remember something really important, and that is that this plan that you're working on right now is only your first draft. You are going to revise this over time. You might completely rewrite it, and you might choose to rewrite it next year, or you might choose to rewrite it 2 months from now. And either way is totally fine. Now, of course, I want you to at least get started with this plan that you create and really start putting it into practice and seeing how well it does work, because you're not going to make any progress in your business if you're stuck in perpetual planning mode and you never actually start doing the work. But feel free to change this plan as much and as often as you need, because as you start doing the work in your business will grow and change, and that is a very good thing. Once more, congratulations on making it all the way to the end of your plan. Whenever you do complete your business plan, I know that this is going to create a really solid strategy and give you a lot of clarity for how you are growing your business forward. If you would like to work together and get even more guidance and some more assistance as you grow your business so that you can have even more confidence and grow your business as quickly as possible, then consider joining us inside Startup Society. That's the best way for us to work together together so that I can walk with you as you grow your company. Let me share with you just a few things that you will receive as a member of Startup Society. First of all, you'll be welcomed into our community of 500 online entrepreneurs. We're all working together to grow our companies, and we are constantly supporting each other, inspiring each other, and providing many opportunities for collaboration, which can help your business to grow a lot faster. The core of Startup Society is our action plan curriculum. Every month you'll work through one action plan to create a really big change and some really big growth in your business. These action plans are focused on topics like creating your website or redoing your marketing messages, developing products and launching products, doing collaborations, and hiring your first team members. Each action plan guides you to create one big result in your business each month, and they guide you every step of the way. Each one is broken down into just 12 really simple, clear, easy to follow action steps so that you can check them off as you go, and making this progress can be downright simple. Finally, Startup Society members receive coaching and support every single month, both in the form of group coaching sessions where I work directly with the members, and also one-on-one email coaching where you can reach out at any point with any questions you have, and we will coach you so that you are never stuck as you work to grow your company. To learn more and become a member today, click the link below this video or visit startupsociety.com. We would love to welcome you into Startup Society and work with you to grow your business as quickly as possible so that you can turn it into your full-time thing.